Greetings, magical mages, spiritual sages, special guardians, spiritual warriors, all of you listening. Welcome to the Age of the Mage. This is episode 29. And we're going to talk a bit today about the magical persona and why it's going to be a valuable exercise to work through. What I have discovered is that the more we understand ourselves, the better chance we have at doing anything really, at success, because we can compensate for our weaknesses and we can pull back when we understand when we need to, and we can really bring some balance into our lives when we know where our strengths and weaknesses lie. And in regards to magic, again, those of us who are practicing magic or spiritual types of work, we are looking for success that's not always physical. It could be rewarding emotionally or spiritually, but we are looking for manifestations of some sort to come about, aren't we? And we're looking for transformation in various ways. If we're healers, we are allowing healing energy to work through us and reach others. And we are hoping when we do this, that these energetic forces will reach those that need the energy they offer and can heal from as a result from our work with them. If we are shaman and we are doing a special project in a multidimensional way, we feel the same. We want to see our efforts succeed. So no matter what we do tend to want to have a feedback loop. We want to see that our efforts are rewarded with what we're going for. Now, many things factor into this, of course. But the closer we can get to ourselves, the better we understand our true motivations and what our true desires are and how we function and what we prefer. These things will help us save time because we won't go down paths that are not really suited for us, to our preferences and to our needs. We won't be searching for things that may not apply to us. Somehow we can get wrapped up culturally and begin to long for things because others do. And they may not even be things we truly want. But it's natural. We're very social creatures. Even those of us that are introverts, we still need a select few to understand us and to stand by us and share love and share life with, don't we? So we're all social to some degree. And influences come to us in direct ways, like social contacts and conversation, but also they come to us through energetic forms, through the etheric fields that we've been talking so much about. And so we do indeed receive pressure and influence from all sides all the time that may not be our own, may not really truly resonate with what we'd like to accomplish, or even what we're here and what we are meant to accomplish. And so the more we get a feeling for who we really are deep down, the more we can accomplish on our own path, the better we will be able to fulfill our own destinies. And we will feel this in our life. This has a positive cycle. It has a positive effect in all ways. It's like ripples from the center out. And we begin to experience more success, and that leads to more success. We begin to experience more peace of mind, perhaps. If we're aiming towards healing, that starts to occur. And then these positive energies feed into more positive energies, and so it grows. So we want this magical persona exercise that I'll be taking us through is complex, but it deserves your time and it deserves your attention if you are serious about understanding how the magical part of your life fits in with other parts of your life and your personality and your tendencies. So we at Modern Masters have devised some different ways to look at yourself. And you will use your imagination quite extensively. And you'll go to places through visualizations that aren't, they're unique. This is not a typical personality type test because we're not looking for just the physical manifestations of your personality. We want to see if we can get clues about our multidimensional selves. And so we have to ask questions that are multidimensional. We have to go into other dimensions to even receive those answers. So as we begin to take this journey together, I want you to keep that in mind, that sometimes it's just going to feel like I'm just using my imagination here, but we are going to talk much more about the power of your imagination, and that, of course, it cannot be underestimated. It is a key component to your success here in this incarnation, in every way, really. It directly ties into magical and spiritual work, but as we know that that will extend into your 3D world. So we have already talked about the first phase of our special type of personality uh, categorization, I guess. We've already hit this in a few podcasts, and that has to do with one of the 7 soul lines, the 7 immortal soul lines. And I really did receive that information several years ago in kind of a holistic fashion. It just dropped in my lap, and I began, sketching it out and working with it. And as I have said before, the 7 immortal soul lines, they are a marker of perhaps your spiritual lineage and what some of your true gifts are. And they show up in the 3D world as energy that centers and circulates around one of your chakras. Now, all of us would love very active, full, healthy chakras so they could be aligned and they can feed into each other and nourish each other. And that is our goal, of course. But as life would have it, many of us show signs and symptoms that one or two of these chakras are more easily activated, perhaps, or are more active, or may even be more blocked than another one. And so the 7 immortal soul lines are an inherited set of tendencies that come through with our soul, just as your physical DNA and genetic markers come through into your body as a result of your ancestry here. And that's a very brief overview. And I will include links in the description to the previous podcasts that go into more detail about the 7 soul lines so that you can revisit that. Because the first step we want to take on this magical persona journey is to identify what you believe you resonate to most strongly when it comes to one of the soul lines. Pick 1 or 2, possibly 3. If you ask yourself and you really spend some time with how the soul lines feel and what the different soul lines find motivates them to work magic, at first it can seem like, I think I'm just all of them. I just feel like I have all of these in me. Well, yes, to some extent we all do, don't we? We're complex, and we can't be reduced down to small little simple boxes by any means. But if you look at the 7 soul lines and you spend some time with it, you might find out that even though you feel creative, as we all are, like the artisan line, you might sense that, yes, I am creative, but I'm always wanting to use my creations for some kind of healing. It always leads me back to healing. If you say, oh, I really love magical traditions, and I do rituals and I do spells, much like the Magi alchemists, you might find the same thing is true. Like when you really think about it, are you constantly mixing up potions that are healing potions for friends and family? If so, then you might be a really good balance between the Magi alchemist and the healer. But it's easy to get distracted by the set of the set of traits that each soul line talks about and say, oh, I do that. But you have to go a little bit deeper and you have to bring yourself back to, all right, when I do that, what's it about? What is it truly about that I'm always after? What makes me tick? So you'll find out that if you keep asking these questions, you can narrow it down for yourself, and you can indeed find one or two of these soul lines that are very primary in your life. Even if you use the other types of traits and characteristics, you see those in yourself from time to time, you will find out that you usually come back to what motivates you to use magic, or what motivates you to go into prayer, go into meditation, are similar, very similar over and over and over. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for your deepest, most underlying, truest sensitivities. And that's what we want to find. So, first step is to go back and really think about what your soul line is. I'll leave you those markers. And then we're going to be also sharing some PDFs very soon with you that you're welcome to print out. If you would like to kind of start a journaling project, which I highly suggest, as you work through these various traits, characteristics, little personality explorations that we're going to do, we want to make sure we offer you those as transcripts and also as journal pages, so you can feel you have something tangible and you're working with that, and you can make notes and so on and so forth as you work through this. So today is just an introduction to what's going to be coming up through the podcasts. The second thing we're going to look at after soul lines is something called your spiritual overlays. So in other words, let's say we have someone who very closely identifies with the fairy or the elven cultures, or mermaid, or dragon, or is a large cat, or is very connected to a intergalactic species, or identifies clearly as a hybrid. These are overlays, and I call these overlays because they're different. They're different than the soul line. The soul line is an inherited, almost at the very core of, lies at the very core of your soul, and comes through in a physical way, linked to your body in a physical way. Sometimes this can happen with the overlays as well, but what the overlay signals to me, it tells me that someone in the course of their soul's journey has spent a good deal of time, or has some very strong patterns linked to another realm entirely. In other words, I tend to believe that that person who feels they are Palladian almost more than they are human, I tend to believe they are Palladian. They have spent many incarnations as a Palladian. They may be here as a very new experiment, or they may be here to help us, those of us who identify more strongly as Earth humans. They may be here to help us in some way. And yet they are very close to their overlay, meaning their history, their previous lives. And so we see people who feel so close to the elf culture, for example, that they actually have ear surgeries, and they just exhibit many elf-like qualities, and they're fascinated by elven literature and the fantasy world that has built up around that, which I believe is largely due to inspiration and direct downloads. But so if this person is feeling it that strongly, I would put it in as their spiritual overlay. In other words, you're still going to be choosing your soul lines, because even if you were an elf and lived in elven realms many, many times, and that all that goes with that culture and race is very, very close and dear to your heart, you still may have lived through those lifetimes as a priest or priestess, or as a vampire, or as a healer. So one of those 7 soul lines would still be exhibiting through you each time you're incarnating into different kinds of realms with different kinds of creatures or species. Others people really identify with animals very strongly. And I would say that this can even include the shifters, the Therians, those that experience werewolf, werecat, any were animal type of shifting happening for them. Now, I am holding the space for everyone's beliefs, and I am not casting doubt anywhere because life has shown me that things are entirely possible that I would never have thought were possible. And so I am not going to eliminate any possibility with regards to things like physically shifting. However, I will say that in many, many cases, Therians are shifting in astral forms. So they, for some reason, have been in the realm, highly intelligent, sentient realms of the animals that they identify with. And on some level, they are shifting back to that realm when they do shift. And this very often occurs in astral and etheric bodies. And because they're so close to another realm and kind of walking two worlds, it can be hard to distinguish between physical shifting and astral shifting. Both bodies are very, very strong and very well represented to those that are Therians. And so these are the things that will create some questions around, and we'll explore as we move on to talk about spiritual overlays. And once we're done with spiritual overlays and you kind of have a feel for where you might be there and some of those aspects that are coming through you, remember those things bring you gifts. Those histories, that the experience your soul has had in those other realms, they contribute to everything you can do here. And so why not know about it? Why not claim those powers, right? That's why we're doing this, is to get you closer to all the powers you actually have at your disposal, to all those abilities that may be locked behind barriers of kind of veils of forgetfulness, those kinds of things. So we want to open back up those curtains, draw those curtains back and see what's really there and what's really available to you. So after soul lines and spiritual overlays, pardon me, we are going to move on to magical archetypes. Now, magical archetypes, I think you will find a little more direct. You won't have to use quite so much imagination because the terminology that goes with the archetypes is very human. It's very 3D, and you will begin right away to see yourself in some of the archetypes: warrior, guardian, protector, healer, sage, researcher, leader. These types of categories, I think you'll be able to identify quite quickly, and we have those ready to go too. And so we'll work through those. Again, you'll be kind of recording your ideas, and we'll be providing you some PDF pages and some journal pages for this. So you can get quite a complete, nice little booklet for yourself after working through these processes and seeing where you think you fit. And the advantage to figuring out your archetype. So an archetype, the way we're using it when we refer to magical archetypes, the way we're going to be using that is this function, as a function and a role. So let's say you identify with 3 primary archetypes. You're a warrior, you're a guardian, and you're a sage. Something like that. Now, not every time you go to work magic, you may not be exhibiting. You may not going in as a warrior to do something in an etheric space, or you may not be creating a spell to enhance fighting abilities, so astral warrior abilities or anything. You may be using one of your other tendencies. You may be saying, "Oh, I just feel like I have to help put a shield around my home today. Everybody in my house seems to be suffering from unwanted energies. So I'm going into my protector mode today, and I'm going to do that." So obviously, again, no, we wouldn't be doing any of these to pigeonhole ourselves or limit ourselves, because the sky's the limit. We could definitely do whatever we set our minds to do, especially with regards to magic and spirit. But once again, very similar to the soul lines, you will find that you drop back down into 1 to 3 sometimes four, but usually between one and three primary roles that you tend to take over and over again. And your magic, this is how you function when you do magic. It's not so much your motivation as it's like the soul line is, it's more how you function. And so this is very important to know about yourself. Now, it becomes even more important when we start working as teams. So the identification process that you'll go through to find your archetype is fun. It's a fun exercise and it's going to teach us all more about ourselves. But it really comes into value when you say, all right, I'm going to have two friends that I know, and the three of us are going to attempt to do something. Is one of us a guardian? Is one of us a healer? Is one of us a warrior? Or are we doing something that's so specialized to healing that we all three need to be healers? These are some of the questions you can ask, and it's kind of fun to know your primary roles and what you're really good at, what you tend to do over and over again, so that you can offer yourself as a team member and say, well, you know what? I'm really good at protection. So while you two go in to fight the battle, I'm gonna watch over us. I'm gonna do the protective shield and keep us safe. If any of you have ever played online games, um, I'm not too familiar with all types of them, but the fantasy MMOs, like the big Warcraft game or something, these are closely built around teams. When you have to go into the dungeons to fight, right? You very often have to assemble your team with a healer and a couple of fighters and someone very strong who could hold the position of a tank. And you have these various roles that you go in to a combative situation with, and the roles help the whole team come through it all right because they balance each other out, and where one isn't weak, the other one is strong, and where one is weak, the other is strong. And so the strengths and weaknesses serve and bring this group a more holistic energy. And that's the idea with to understand your archetype, because that will help us when we do get some confidence and we gradually meet each other and we trust one or two people or three people and we say, hey, this situation over here needs our help. So let's do it. And what we'll look for is, we'll look for two healers and we'll look for a guardian or something like that. So it's fun and it's helpful, but it really has a purpose. And we'll see that more as we decide to work together. So the archetypes will be a fun part and a large part of our assessment and our building up of this magical persona. Another part that we're going to discuss are the prime worlds. And there's just so much to go. There's so much to talk about here. We're going to be building a virtual network online. And so prime worlds is truly a very highly imaginative part of the magical persona. And it's like starting a character almost. If you were going to start an avatar in a game or something and you wanted to determine, what is the history of my avatar? Where did I come from? What do I want to assign my avatar? What do I want to bring into this virtual world with me? And so it's a little more complex, and we're going to go into it in detail upcoming, but there's that aspect too. And then there's the networks themselves that will become part of the magical persona, because you will, as we've talked about, just as a listener, you are part of a network of energy because we're sharing we are resonating to one another. Or I wouldn't feel such connection when I'm speaking, and you wouldn't feel connection and keep listening. So we are sharing something. There is a resonance that we're experiencing. And this network, even though it's very loose and even though there's no recognition in a formal sense, the etheric connections are starting to reach out there and be made. And I've even had some really miraculous experiences, thanks to a few of you this past week that have reminded me how very true this is. It's not just talking about it. This is a real thing. This is true. And so, yes, there is this network that is running between us, and we find it according to our vibration signatures, the things we share, the things we have in common. So But we are going to be establishing a little more formalized networks for anyone that would like to have some fun with it and be part of these things. And those are coming up on the horizon. And so your magical persona, we're going to build one that you can take that's based on you, the real you, instead of a fantasy avatar that you will take into that network with you. And it's kind of fun. And it's even more far-reaching than it appears on the surface. It is not just an avatar you'll work with in the physical world, but many magicians, many high ceremonial magicians or shaman that work in multidimensional space, often and all the time, etheric spaces and astral zones. They know about this. They know that they attach things to themselves when they project into those spaces. They can represent. They can add strengths to themselves. They can add characteristics, and they can take tools and they can take armor and different types of things into spaces in an etheric sense that, yes, they are still themselves when they go there, but it alters them in a way that gives them the characteristics they need to do their work in those realms. So as we work through all this fascinating and fun exploration of your magical persona, we are going to discuss how this gets used in so many different ways. And I think you'll enjoy it. So for today, that's it. I just wanted to introduce many of the upcoming concepts and where we're going to head with that particular part of the podcast. Of course, there will be other things that come into play when I get a download or I receive information that I'm supposed to share with you. I will make a podcast about that. But we will keep working our way gradually through this magical persona, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I think you will. I think it will be of service to you and something you'll be able to use in all that you're doing. So I thank you for being with me again today, and I'm looking forward to our next chat, and I will return soon, and I'll say bye for now.